Hey everybody. Hey everybody. So I've been thinking about therapies and diseases and side effects and pain and healing and the J juice and then the two absolutes, which is life and death. And it's very exciting for those of you that are really now getting the two absolutes. And our society is living in the absolute of death, but they do live a little bit prior to it. And I know a lot of you are very excited. Some of you just can't wait to now have a new platform to work from. And it could feed into your addiction of now part of an activist for life. And it's okay to be an activist for life, but how do you approach it? How do you manifest this information? I want to say manifest. How are you communicating this information? Is it coming from the same way that you did when you were an activist, against pharmaceuticals? Are you taking this information and kind of replacing it with your addiction to another activist principle you had when you were in the allopathic holistic world? So even Jilly Juice could be used in place of a specific type of activist role that I don't necessarily really want to have that as somebody's purpose in life, I guess. Okay. It's just like using Jilly Juice as a remedy. Jilly Juice isn't a remedy. Okay, but Jilly Juice isn't some kind of like political activist thing where you can use it to now really make people wrong for their belief system. So there is a balance with that. And some of you have high adrenaline. And when you have high adrenaline and you have this information, because, a little bit of information can make people dangerous, okay? So when you have a high adrenaline and you really are seeing yourself wanting to utilize this platform as an activist type of thing, then it becomes imbalanced and it sends the wrong message, okay? So I just want you guys just to be aware of how in which you present this to people and what your purpose behind J-Juice. Is it to make people wrong? And I have to look at that too, because I was an activist. Maybe I have shades of activism and on some level. So I kind of know and I understand. Hey, Sherry, thanks. But just be aware of how it is that you're presenting this information. So that way you're not falling into the same patterns, okay? And then the whole point of doing the J-Juice is to actually exemplify balance. Thank you, Sherry. It's to actually exemplify balance. And it's not always easy because you may think that you're coming from a balanced perspective, but when somebody recognizes something or you get a specific reaction from someone, maybe you're not as balanced as you think. And so I get reminded too from some people when I do act a certain way, are you coming from a balanced perspective or are you coming from a reactive? And I have to do my own checks and balances. And sometimes, they may call it wrong and they may call it right. Okay. So, all the feedback we get from our community is another way of looking at our behaviors because we're so automatic. I know I am. And so, yeah, and I do ask people, don't private message me. And even though you're very excited and all that stuff, and you want to like share how you're sharing this with people and all this stuff, let me tell you, the best way to share this protocol is to actually exemplify balance. What does that mean? You're drinking the juice. You're showing people you're drinking the juice. It's not a political platform where it's just about theories. Because yes, my theories and my concepts are very revolutionary and definitely very different. It causes people to have, some kind of reaction to it. But what it really comes down to is, are you drinking the juice? What are the specific measurable results to back up your activism around it, your political platform, your excitement? Because if you're paying so much lip service to it, but you don't have any really physical substantiation in your world that you can talk about your personal experience, your anecdotal evidence, then it's just another political platform for you to go and ram and make wrong. And so I see that in some of you that are very excited, okay? Because there's so many political platforms out there that people do get bored of it. It's the same thing, and now this is something new and different. But don't replace one addiction with another. So Jilly Juice can be abused by people who have that propensity to want to be an activist. And so I just want you to be aware of it too, okay? And so if you're very good at speaking and you're very good at just going on Facebook Live, and you're good at getting concepts across, then utilize Facebook Live and utilize your ability to communicate this information, and then drink the juice. Okay, just drink the juice and then exemplify and talk about your healing process. Talk about what is going on with you, what people could potentially expect, but maybe not the same thing that you are doing, but what they could expect in their world based upon all of their PTSD and traumas and illnesses that they've ever experienced, okay? That's the way to really, really, really get this point across. And yes, the theory and the theories and the memes are great, but we need to go deeper than just the discussion around the potential of indefinite life. Now it actually has to come down to, are you doing it? And then what does it take for you to actually trigger that indefinite life? Okay? And so that's going to be something that is going to take some practice. And it's going to take you kind of holding back all of your adrenaline and your excitement that you have a new thing, and actually drink the juice. I mean, yesterday I drank the juice, and actually it felt like the first time in a long time that I actually did those waterfalls. It's been probably over a month or two, potentially. I think, yeah, about a month or two. And so it's a good reminder of what you guys will be going through when you do the juice. And so this is, and so the whole thing with the whole therapies, now I know that I've been just hammering the therapies. At first it sounded like I was just going after therapists and going after the holistic people and going after all these people and trying to attack. And it may seem like it comes off like that, where I sound like I'm attacking or reactive, but it's a thought process. Like, my gut knows something is wrong here with the therapies that are out there, but I can't articulate it really clearly yet, but I know my gut says there's something wrong, and I just have to put the information together to then give you guys a substantiation of why we don't coach people. We don't coach people as far as pain mitigation or any kind of therapy, whatever it is. You can call it a biohack, you can call it a remedy, you can call it whatever, but we don't do that, because that's not the point of J-Juice. Is to mitigate pain. Yes, people have to figure out how they're going to balance out therapies and their pain, and then also bringing in their life. Okay, people have to go to work, they have to go, hang out with their kids, they have priorities that they can't always give to the healing process, and the body is going to heal regardless of what your priorities are. So how are you going to manage the therapies where it doesn't overshadow the healing process? Okay, but that's not really where I'm directed right now. But that's the whole point of J-Juice. But we don't instruct people on what they should do to manage or manage their healing process when it comes to therapies. Everyone's going to do what they're going to do as far as in my group. And people can ask each other in my group what they do, but we're not influencing anyone to do any one specific therapy to deal with their healing process. We're not promoting any therapists. We're not promoting any one products. We're not promoting any one type of thing. Now, I know Kevin has certain biohacks that there's a fine line, and just something that since he's writing the book with me, he has, full license to kind of give his perspective, because it is coming from our perspective. And so, and he understands how to balance it out, because he's doing the protocol and balancing it out at the same time. Doesn't mean it's going to work for you, but you are going to hear from our perspective on how we dealt trying to heal with the J juice and what we brought in to kind of help us out. But that's it. I mean, if somebody goes into the group and asks what people do to help them get the juice down, okay, fine. But I have mentioned last night, because something struck me as funny with some of my therapists in there, not all of them, there was one that I think was overstepping her boundaries and was actually reaching out to some of my members and assisting them with the healing process. And I don't know the details. I just know that something happened, not anything bad, but she reached out to someone that was, it's inappropriate. The person said that the person helped them, okay, but that's not the point of my group, is where you're going to go and procure clients, whether you're doing it for free or whether you're charging them money. That's not the point of my group, is for some MLMer or a therapist to go in and find people who are healing and then help them through the process. Okay, you're not their doctor, you're not their therapist. I know you're a member and you want to support, and there's a fine line and there's gray areas, but some people do overstep, and then they reach out to people in my group and try to influence them into a therapy. And it's a kind of a manipulation, because these people are at a weak point. They already have doctors, they already have professionals in their world. All they're doing is a J juice and drinking it, and they're dealing with the pain. There should be nobody in my group reaching out to anybody trying to help them through the healing process. Okay, you're supposed to feel pain, and then if you don't want to, you go see your doctor or you go see a professional in your world. There's nobody in my group that is equipped to deal with anybody's situation as far as pain mitigation. Nobody. I'm not even equipped. I do what I do when I was going through my healing process. I remember in the beginning I was doing colloidal silver, which, okay, that was way back in the beginning. I was doing garlic oil way back in the beginning. Peppermint oil, I was doing, you know, sort of throughout, but that doesn't mean that it's going to work for you guys. And it could potentially, you know, undermine your healing process, because some people don't even know what limits or what dosages or anything. But that's what I did. But then, you know, I could have healed faster if I didn't use those. But at the time, I didn't know any better. Okay? So, but we don't, you know, now we know we don't need to have garlic oil. Now, you know, you don't need it. We don't need to have the colloidal silver. Okay? And so the J juice is good topically. It's good internally. It's good to douche and enemas and all that stuff, but not too much enema, because you don't want to surprise yourself later. So that's why, you know, we don't really instruct anybody on doing any kind of therapy in my group, because that would actually undermine and completely, it's the antithesis of the Jilly Juice, is to go find all these different therapies, because then you're no different than the holistic allopathic, and then what's the point, right? It just becomes out of control. And so, yeah, so I did kick one therapist out of the group, okay, because she already reached out to me to try to diagnose me or, you know, whatever. And then she's also reached out to other people in the group and then putting forth information that really was not aligned with the J juice protocol. So that's why I'm very much, when people say that they're a therapist in my group, or they're putting out there, oh yeah, I'm doing this, but if you're reaching out to anybody in my group, which is fine, people can say whatever their professions are, but nobody should be reaching out to anybody in my group and trying to procure any kind of service or solicit anybody in my group. So yeah, I mean, if you are a therapist and you are implementing J juice and you're bringing it to your people, that's totally on you, and that's great. So so there's that. So as far as the therapies, I've been focusing on therapies and immunotherapies and chemotherapies and hormone replacement therapy, and cannabis is like a hormone replacement therapy. Okay, just so you guys know that chemotherapy it's a therapy where you're bringing in massive amounts of elements, heavy metals, to go and try to stop the programming. And so therapies have side effects because therapies aren't nutritious. Okay, I mean, it's not a food. Now, here's the thing. You can take too much of any one food and then it becomes poisonous. Okay, and so then you have the FDA and you have the CDC, well, you have the FDA, the USDA, to measure how many elements are, how many parts per million is safe enough for human consumption. Because that's why we have these watchdog agencies to say, okay, it's safe, relatively safe for you to ingest this or snort this or eat this or drink this, okay? And so the holistic world therapies, because they do use detoxes like bentonite clay, they do use kombuchas and apple cider vinegars and colloidal silvers. And if you take so much of any of those in large amounts, yeah, it's really bad for you. So they try to kind of say, okay, will the average human take like 10 cups of apple cider vinegar? No. They couldn't even handle probably even a cup of drinking apple cider vinegar because it's so acidic. I mean, it's super acidic. So when you take in small amounts apple cider vinegar and kombucha, it just depends on the biochemistry of the body. So they figure out what the average biochemistry is of the body and what a person could potentially do, and is this product safe enough for human consumption without having to list side effects, okay? And so that's why the holistic world is able to get away with making claims and not having to list side effects, though you can Google the side effects of apple cider vinegar, side effects of colloidal silver, side effects, all these things. And then you can find out that way what people have experienced with it. But when you actually, you know, when you go buy this stuff at the market, it's not like a prescription drug where it lists out the side effects. And so I know, so that's why there's a difference in the holistic and the allopathic world, is that it's not as strong as a prescription drug, but it's still detrimental on certain people's biochemistries, which is what people have failed to understand in the holistic world. Because it doesn't have a list of side effects, they think it's safe. And that's the wrong way to look at it. So when you're born with imbalances and disease, which means everybody is born with an imbalance and a disease, because reproduction comes from bodies that have issues, okay? And so then what is life all about? It's all about therapies, side effects, disease, therapies, side effects, disease, and it happens, and it's a systematic degradation. And then guess what death is? It's imbalance, therapies, side effects, and disease. So when you're doing therapies on people, so you see what's the common denominator? It really is, it's the imbalance and it's the therapies. So what makes the prescription drug world so much worse than the holistic world? Because they have a specific intention with the prescription drug world. But just like the vaccine, they have a specific intention. Just like any prescription drug, there's a specific intention. And when they list out the side effects, just like these immunotherapies, what are side effects? Side effects is when you're taking something that is not nutritious that will cause an imbalance in the other systems of the body, or it damages the body, and then the body then has to go and try to attempt to repair the damage. So it is a simultaneous thing. A side effect is a simultaneous type of event. It is a damage done, and then it's a body trying to fix itself, trying to adapt, adjust, okay? And so there is nothing nutritious about immunotherapies. There's nothing nutritious about chemotherapy. There's nothing nutritious about taking cannabis oil or smoking pot or cannabis. It's not nutritious. People will take some of the components of cannabis, like endocannabinoids, which you can find in cabbage and kale and coffee, but they're not taking it as a nutritional thing. It's not part of the 4 food groups. Okay, because it's a very aggressive type of plant. It actually is like a hormone manipulation, because endocannabinoids really have to do with the endocrine system. Those are your hormones. It brings up, epinephrine and dopamine. That's what cannabis does. It manipulates your hormones. And so, so these therapies are really all about manipulating your biochemistry to bring up a specific hormone to then kind of divert and distract you from the body trying to heal. So when you're smoking cannabis, you're bringing up the epinephrine, which is the pleasure, or the adrenaline. Well, I'll say not epinephrine. Is it epinephrine or is it oxytocin? It's dopamine and it's something else. Hold on. I knew what it was and I didn't. All right, give me 1 second. Because I can. I guess it depends on what strain too. Okay. Cannabis. Hormones. Cannabis hormones, whatever. That's right, endorphins, not epinephrine. Because it doesn't make people all like, it's a real chill out. So dopamine and endorphins. Okay, so that's what cannabis basically manipulates, is the endorphins and the dopamine. And that's why people are so addicted to it, because they're so addicted to playing with their hormones. And this is why drugs are very addicting. And this is why people, when they do ayahuasca or when they're doing chakra type of stuff where they manipulate parts of their body, or they're doing acupuncture, all they're doing is manipulating their hormones. That's what therapies are, okay? And so when you have PTSD, when there's trauma to the body, hormones come into play to help you deal with that trauma. And so when those hormones come up and then you already have an imbalance, sometimes those hormones don't stop producing. They just keep producing. And it's almost like you're stuck on replay, where the record skips and it skips and it skips and it skips and it skips until you actually, stop, because there's a scratch on the record. So any kind of trauma a person endures is a potential for a hormonal imbalance, unless the person knows how to heal and fix that weakness and release the trauma effectively, okay? And so with all these different therapies, what they're doing is they're releasing trauma ineffectively, but it seems like it's effective because you feel better. Okay, well, people that take drugs feel better. Does feeling better actually mean that you're healed? Because, yeah, I mean, if you're going to do a therapy, you might as well go and take a drug. It's the same thing. It's just a different way of attacking the same problem. Okay? And so then what happens is so that you're born with imbalances, you have disease, then your life is all about therapies and then the side effects from the therapies. And then what happens, it soft pedals you into the next disease. And then you do another therapy, and then you have another side effect, and those side effects soft pedal you into the next disease. Okay? Until the body has nothing left for it to keep building you up. The nutrients, you have malabsorption, so you don't have the nutrients, access to the nutrients, and your minerals have been depleted. And so then guess what? When you have the side effects or the pain, the body's attempting to repair itself, because that's what side effects are, is there's a damage done and the body's attempting to repair itself by taking minerals and nutrients from other parts of the body, or trying to take the nutrients, from the food supply, because the food supply will then help you store, but if you have malabsorption, then you're just wasting those resources. And then what happens is that when you are mineral depleted or nutrition depleted or malnourished, then you have an event like a stroke or a heart attack and you don't survive it. Okay? So so this is why I've been really focusing on therapists and therapy, because people think that just because someone doesn't touch you, but they tell you how to manipulate your own hormones, doesn't make it right, doesn't make it safe, because then you're seeing the progressive degradation of that human. every single time you do a therapy with the side effects, because, you know, and the thing with the J juice world, the pain, people want to call the J juice, you know, pain side effects, but they're not side effects. There's no damage being done for the J juice. Salt is not poisonous unless you're just taking salt and that's it. Nobody's doing that. So salt is not poisonous, water is not poisonous, electrolytes are not poisonous, minerals are not really poisonous when it comes to a chemical process, and neither is the fermentation or cabbage and kale. Now, okay, so then, you know, when you're dealing with the pain, you already have damage, the body's attempting to heal itself, and this is why we don't then turn to therapies. People do because they have to manage their life. But the whole point, if in a perfect world, people would just deal with the pain. If they had all the time in the world to heal and they had a good support system and they were strong, well, relatively, I would have no therapies as part of the J-Juice protocol. But we don't live in that world. People have other distractions, other things going on. They have to find a way to stop the pain so they can go to work or do a presentation. So they have to utilize some therapies, okay? But so what is it about the holistic world that makes it safer than prescription drugs? It's because it's they say that there's no, when you utilize like peppermint oil, what's the side effect of using just straight up peppermint oil? It's burning. It burns. It's like acid. So you already know just by smelling an essential oil that you don't ingest it. And people do with these MLMs. They will put these essential oils with coconut oil or something, put it in a capsule, and they swallow it. Okay? Or they swallow colloidal silver, which I did too at some point. Or they swallow turmeric or golden paste, or honey and turmeric and garlic and all these different things. Or they'll put like kombucha or elderberry syrup. So they have all of these different imbalances in the acids, imbalances in the hormones. Like you can get too much nutrition too in one area because it's not balanced correctly. You can get too many minerals. I mean, when you do the heavy metal detoxes, the bentonite clay is too many minerals. It's like aluminum silicate. That's too much of a condensed mineral because aluminum is a mineral. Okay? And so it's regulated, but it's not as regulated as far as the holistic world, because there really is no specific intention, though they've gotten away with trying to claim that, oh, if you take this, it's good for the gallbladder. You could do a liver flush with this. And so, and with all these different plants or all these different barks and tree barks and oils and all that stuff. And so the holistic world has gotten kind of like, I would say, deceptive as well as crafty and strategic in how they market and then what they're putting out there. Okay, and as well as the supplements world. I mean, it's FDA approved because it's a poison, but it's okay for the general population to use. However, different bodies are going to respond because it's not so strong where they have to actually have a list of side effects on the side. Because then, you know, because what makes a prescription drug different than an over-the-counter drug or different from a holistic supplement is the fact of the strength and the intention. Okay? And so it's better actually to have a prescription drug when you think about it, because they tell you how it's going to potentially damage some of your other systems, and the body then tries to repair it at the same time. And then you can make that decision, is it really worth it to have this symptom go away when you're going to be acquiring other symptoms? Okay, so at least they're honest with the prescription drug market, and then you can make an accurate choice for yourself and you'll know what to expect. And there's a specific intention. But when it comes to supplements, when it comes to essential oils in the holistic market, that's probably far more dangerous than the pharmaceuticals, because people don't know how much to take. And even if they think, oh, I'll just take a little bit, you don't know what kind of imbalances you have. You could have a major, some people say, oh, I'm allergic to this metal, or I'm allergic to that, I'm allergic to this. And so when you have a specific biochemistry that you may have overabundance in one mineral, and then you're taking this one mineral that you have an overabundance of, that will soft pedal you or hard pedal you into an actual disease. Because at some point when you're born, you're exposed to all these different elements, all these different acids, all these different minerals. But what caused the disease? Well, you're always going to be around viruses. That's never, ever out of the question. Okay, you never can get away from viruses. So viruses aren't bad. It's the fact that you have such a weak body because you have all these different imbalances, and then you're eating things that are not really aligned with your biochemistry because you have an imbalance, but you don't know this. All you see is now that you're sick, and then you're trying to make correlation equals causation, that, oh, it's the vaccines, oh, it's this, oh, it's that. When really it's you have the imbalances that were never corrected, and you're eating foods or you're exposed to an environment that is just causing more of the imbalance, causing now more or overabundance or suppressing hormones to where now you are deficient. Okay? And so the holistic market actually soft pedals you and then hard pedals you into a disease. That's all the holistic market is. That's why I knew that the holistic market and the allopathic market are two sides of the same coin. One just happens to have the honesty of listing out the side effects because they know it's a very strong drug with an intention. And then all of the supplements and the essential oils and the shakes and the powders and the extracts and the little tinctures of stuff, that is also can be very bad for different types of people who have major weaknesses and imbalances. And so it's harder to pinpoint exactly what kind of side effects you would get because everybody is different with their imbalances. So that's why there isn't a list of side effects on the essential oils or on any of these supplements. There might be where it says, okay, you don't take any more than, I don't know. I haven't had a supplement in this house in a long time. Okay, but if you want to go look at all of your supplements and all of your holistic stuff, will they give you honestly what potentially a side effect? I mean, I guess you can Google and say, okay, because I took the primrose oil capsules when I was trying to deal with my PMDD because some naturopathic said, hey, yeah, you have PMDD, here, take this. So I was taking massive amounts of those primrose oil and it made my heart beat faster. It actually gave me adrenaline. It was like a caffeine in a way. It caused more imbalances because I didn't know what the hell I was doing. She's not my doctor. She's just someone that gave me advice over the internet. And I listened to her. Come to find out, she doesn't know what she's talking about either. So that's why these naturopathics, especially on the internet and all these holistic groups, are doing a lot more damage to people than the actual doctors are. And then when people have disease and cancer because they're taking too much elderberry syrup or too much supplements, then they want to go blame the doctors and the vaccines. But they won't even look at their holistic supplements that have caused and paved the way and soft pedal to hard pedal into a disease. So, you're born with imbalances and disease, and then your life is full of therapies, full of them. Because when you're manipulating somebody's hormones, even meditation on a body that's weak, when you're trying to control your emotions and control yourself through meditation, okay, great, it's a stay of execution, but you haven't gotten to the root cause. But then they're doing that with these kids who are very, very impressionable. They have all these different, adrenaline issues, anger issues, and incorrigible stuff issues. And so they're trying to now control them through their own hormones by doing meditation. And when you manipulate a child's biochemistry, you can cause more imbalances. When you have too much oxytocin running through your veins, then it becomes an imbalance. And then it does contribute to anxiety and fear and all of that. And then also nymphomania. And then also where you don't have your boundaries, where you're going to be taken advantage of. You'll be crossing boundaries too. Okay? And then when you have an imbalance in your adrenaline, so that's why people have high blood pressures, because they have adrenaline imbalances. Or some guys have huge testosterone adrenaline imbalances, and they are so like bam, 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 and really just wanting to fight everybody, maybe not physically, but even just activism is a manifestation of imbalances in adrenaline, imbalances in your hormones. And then people trade one addiction for the other. So, okay, this type of manifesting my adrenaline doesn't work. I'm going to then now transfer into another thing and utilize this to manifest my adrenaline, or my love, 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 or hate, 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 or fight, 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 or flight, flight, flight. Okay, and so that's the thing with nowadays with all these therapies, is that we are messing with the kids' biochemistry, and we're causing imbalances with all these therapies. And even though, yeah, you feel good, yeah, drugs make people feel good for a very short amount of time, but they haven't got to the root cause. And the more that you bring up certain hormones will cause more imbalances. So that's why you see such a extreme in the different biochemistries as far as the hormones. Why you see love and hate work hand in hand. Why you see predator and prey always living together. Domestic violence is a perfect example of two people with major severe imbalances, and they feed off each other. One is full of oxytocin and trying to get someone to love, 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 or not enough oxytocin, and so they think that any kind of attention is enough to fill their love tank, I guess. And they accept things that are inappropriate. Okay, and then they get abused, and then another person who's very imbalanced will manipulate that situation, and then it's bad. So yeah, what we do with our kids nowadays with the therapies, yeah, we're going to have victims and we're going to have predators. We're raising victims and predators because of how they're manipulating with all the different therapies, their biochemistry. When you're giving kids so much elderberry syrup and so much kombucha and so much of the different holistic stuff, you're soft pedaling your kid to a disease. And then you'll blame the vaccinated and the unvaccinated, when you're always going to be exposed to viruses, no matter what. Always will be exposed to viruses. So viruses are not the problem. The vaccines are not the problem. Really, biotech isn't really the problem. Okay, but they're just there as a byproduct of humanity's inability to understand their own body. And they have imbalances and they want someone to give them a quick shortcut fix. The problem is the fact that people have imbalances in their biochemistry and they're applying the wrong chemistry. And then they do the therapies, which is the wrong chemistry. And then there's the side effects. The body gets damaged and then tries to heal at the same time. And then what happens is that you're not really fixing those weaknesses or refilling your reserves. And then you soft pedal your way into another disease. And you do another therapy, another side effect. The body is now damaged from another side effect. Okay. And then the body tries to repair itself, and that's where the pain comes from. And then the person applies another therapy, okay, or they get a disease, and then another therapy, and it becomes a continuous until the person passed away. And so I'm watching now a high school friend of mine who is going through that same thing. He's gone through, 12 rounds of chemotherapy. So when he entered into this therapy of sorts, the chemotherapy, he looked, even though, yeah, he has pancreatic cancer, but he looked, he looked okay. He looked healthy, okay? But he was diagnosed that he has pancreatic cancer. So they had to do something because it will spread. Okay, fine. And then you see him like weeks and weeks later, and he's in so much pain, and they're putting him on morphine, they're putting him on all these different therapies, drug therapies, and then also now they're trying immunotherapies because the chemotherapy isn't really working. And then you see another picture of him, and he's just now a shell of himself. You can see the gray in his beard. I mean, he shaved his head. Very, very skinny. You can see the wrinkles around his eyes. And you're seeing that the therapies are taxing him to such an extent that the body is desperately trying to keep the vital organs going, and it's stealing minerals from his hair, skin, and nails. Well, he doesn't have any hair, so they're stealing minerals from his bones. So that's why he's now getting skinnier and more frail. He looks like he's about 60, and he's a year younger than me, and he looks like he's 60. Okay? And that's what the acceleration of the therapies. So if you were fast forward somebody's life who practices a holistic allopathic world, you see it in a chemotherapy patient. It's just in a time-lapse photography where it's now faster. Okay? But that's essentially what all the therapies are doing. It's watching a cancer patient go through chemotherapy, as well as even cannabis too. Okay? Don't think that cannabis is any safer. So when you look at a chemotherapy patient, that's exactly what people do with their kids and with themselves throughout their life. And that's why it's a bit slower, the death process, because yeah, you're constantly giving and taking and changing your diet, changing environments. It's a progressive decline because of all of the imbalanced disease and the therapies and the side effects and disease and therapies and side effects and disease, and that constant loop. And then death is imbalanced therapy, side effects, and disease. Okay? And so, yeah, you're seeing a human's life fast forward through a chemotherapy patient. Because looking at him now, I couldn't tell he was my age. And you're like, holy crap, this is like it's like fast forwarding humanity in our society, watching a chemotherapy patient. So don't think that holistic supplements or holistic market is any better than the allopathic market when it comes to dealing with people's cancer, disease, and chronic illness. It's just a soft pedal and then a hard pedal towards then the most aggressive disease, to where then you have to get chemotherapy, or you get organs taken out, or who knows, or you're just basically in hospice, in home or outpatient or wherever, you know. So that's why I'm so on the case of all the therapists that come into my group that don't promote me on their page, that promote I don't say they promote, but they make people aware and know that they are a therapist in some way. And then they try to school me on information. No, honey. Their intention is not to hurt people. But remember, the road to hell is paved by good intentions. If you're not putting J-Juice on your platform as part of your therapy, but the therapy should not be the thing that is predominant. The Jilly Juice really needs to be taking the lead, and the therapy is just only there as a potential maybe if it's necessary. But people are not going to do that, because remember, there's a lot of money in therapy because everybody is going through some kind of trauma. And so it's like, it's easy because there's so many desperate people that don't want to feel pain, don't understand pain, and they want to feel good and take their drugs and anesthetize themselves until they pass away. So it's like easy money for these therapists. And I know it, and I don't like, I hate to seem like I'm bagging on them, but that's really what it is. Therapists are no different than the prescription drug market. You have to realize that those two are one of the same. Yeah, okay, you get a stay of execution. Chemotherapy has helped people from immediate danger, but they're still on their way out the door. You just bought them a few years. What's your life? What's 5 years worth? You know, is $10,000 worth 5 years of your life, or 5 years of life worth $10,000? Some people, yeah. Is $100 an hour for your therapy worth potentially living longer? But you don't know. But even with these chemotherapies, they don't know if it's going to really buy you 5 years, because every biochemistry is different. Even the cannabis. You catch anything early enough, you're going to have a long life. You have enough minerals in your body. I mean, there's one guy in my high school class that went through 40 rounds of chemotherapy. But this guy is like tall, like 6 foot something, huge white dude. So he had enough minerals to withstand 40 rounds of chemo. That's a lot of rounds of chemo, and he still looks relatively young. Okay, I mean, he's my age, or maybe, yeah, about my age. he looks relatively young, and he survived the chemo and is living, he's living like a regular normal life, I guess. And then the same guy in my high school class who's slight build, who is, who's Asian. So they're already, less in the bone density, smaller stature and structure, going through 12 rounds of chemo, and it's zapping the life out of him. Okay? So it's even what you bring to the table, how many minerals you have, to whether or not you're going to survive all these therapies. So, I mean, and I come from a therapist world. My mother's a psychotherapist. And, if it's not her intention to hurt anybody, no. The intention of the allopathic holistic market is not to hurt or cause harm, but it's the people's bodies is what predicates why they would have more side effects, why they would have more issues, and why they could potentially die from the therapies. And now we're seeing generations are becoming weaker and weaker because people keep procreating on bodies that are weaker and weaker, that haven't fixed the generational weaknesses and issues, and they are inheriting these multitude of diseases. Okay? You're always going to be exposed to viruses, so that's never going to be out of the question. But it's the weaknesses that you're inheriting. And so, yeah, so, you have all these diseases, you come into this world already at a deficit, and then you, right off the bat, you're doing therapies, and they already have imbalances, and then therapies, and then disease, and then therapies, and disease, and oh my God. And so people are progressively becoming sicker and sicker and sicker. And then you see it in a cancer patient undergoing chemotherapy. Because that chemotherapy is representative of colloidal silver, it's representative of cannabis, is representative of elderberry syrup, of kombucha, of apple cider vinegar, of every single therapy people have used that is causing more imbalances in the body to then soft pedal and then hard pedal to the next disease, to then warrant chemotherapy. Okay? So this is what you guys have to understand. This is what you need to get across to your people, is that therapies on bodies that already have imbalances, major ones, create the side effects, the body being damaged and then trying to heal at the same time. Because that's what pain is. That's what the whole thing with the J juice is. Now you're finally fixing the weaknesses, the damage that was done to you through your own ignorance because of your practices and bringing in the wrong chemistry. Okay, so if you have PTSD, you get in a car accident, or you reacted to a disease or a virus because your body is so weak, and you apply the wrong chemistry and it caused a side effect, and then your body's trying to heal, but it really doesn't. It just adapts, and then you don't really see it too much. And then you drink the J juice, you get the nutrition, because chili juice is nutrition. Immunotherapy and chemotherapy is not. Kombucha is not nutritious. Okay? I mean, what is nutrition? Is where it's a balanced elements that is not going to cause more imbalances. But then it's how much you take, and I mean, it's just but it's how it impacts your biochemistry to allow your body to take in what it needs and release the excess. Okay, but then the body will do that anyways with like kombucha or apple cider vinegar. If you take too much, you're going to throw up or you're going to poop it out, one of the two. But you already have imbalances in your lactic acid, and you already have imbalances in your acid, and so all the sugar and the lactic acid then causes more imbalances, then you have lactic acidosis, and then you are missing the nutrients from the cabbage and kale because it's not in there, and there's no like major minerals that you would get in the pink Himalayan salt in like a kombucha or apple cider vinegar. And so the body, may release the excess, but it hasn't fixed the weaknesses. So even though the body is doing autophagy, it's releasing, but nobody is fixing the weaknesses. So the body will work, in a way like half like yeah, the body when it takes in a poison, it will release if it's too much of an imbalance. And so that's what all these detoxes. So the apple cider vinegar and the kombucha are really not nutritious because it's not a full pack of all the right things happening simultaneously. You're triggering the wrong things and you're taking in the wrong things, and then the body is trying to react. And so yeah, it's going through, those are the symptoms of it releasing. But then you cause dehydration too, because you're not getting in the electrolytes, you're not getting in the proper nutrition. So when you're taking massive amounts of apple cider vinegar or kombucha, yeah, the body has to try to release the excess, but you're doing more damage. And then you trigger a side effect, and the body tries to repair that, and then you then cause disease. And then that's where gout and all these different diseases when you have too many acid imbalances. So it's a lot of things. You have to understand how the human body works. You have to understand that the therapies are about manipulating your hormones, causing more imbalances. Okay? So people try to say that, oh yeah, my therapy, like, yeah, these spiritual therapists think that they are a cut above the psychotherapists, or they think they're better than other therapists that touch people like Reiki. Well, teaching a person how to manipulate their own biochemistry without really bringing in the nutrition, but just by touching themselves in some way, doesn't make you any better, because it's the intention. Feeling pain is the whole point of the healing process, because eventually when you actually get the right nutrition and you heal and seal, pain disappears because you've just healed your body in the right way. But they call anesthetization healing. That's why when people use the word, I'm a spiritual healer, I'm this healer, a healer this, healer that. Healer, the word healer gets used in areas that are inappropriate. No, you just drug someone's body with their own biochemistry. That's what shamans do. Okay? Or they bring in elements that are very, very aggressive and extreme. And then people are like, oh, I'm seeing God, or I'm seeing something. And that's the whole ayahuasca stuff. So yeah, I really needed to focus on the therapy stuff and how that contributes to the overall cancer, disease, and chronic illness, and then death in our society. Because you got to see how it's related. It's all related. There is no remedies market, no therapies market that is really, truly safe for people, especially now that we are becoming weaker and weaker and weaker and weaker. So that's something that, yeah, so if anybody contacts you guys that are in my group trying to offer you a therapy, ignore them. Let me know who they are if you want to. But they should not be soliciting any of their therapy services to anybody on my page, in my group. No. Okay, if you are a therapist and you are doing the J juice and you're introducing it to your people and you're putting me out there publicly on your platform as part of your whole thing, great. But I doubt that anybody really that's a therapist is going to put me first in their business, because that's not their whole point, is to bring up pain. Their whole point is to anesthetize you. So I'll be more of like, you know, in the background for any of these people. I'm not going to be in the forefront. That's why I know there's not going to be really a collaboration with anybody when it comes to the Jilly Juice, when it comes to the therapy world, because we are diametrically opposed, and for a good reason. And so now you have to see that, yeah, when you fast forward a chemotherapy patient's life, going through 12 rounds of chemotherapy on a body that's already mineral depleted, or they wouldn't be going through it to begin with. It's like people applying the different colloidal silvers, elderberry syrup, the different therapies, the massage therapy, the yoga therapy, the sauna therapy, all of that. You're seeing it fast forwarded in a chemotherapy patient's body undergoing chemotherapy and their body isn't really able to handle it. Okay, so the J juice does heal the past, present, and future wounds in your body. It really does. And that's why we don't mitigate pain with therapies. But people do because they have to manage their life. But that's not the point of J juice. So that's one of the hardest concepts for even my own people to really grasp onto, because they want to help you guys. They know you're in pain, but pain is healing. And I sound like a caustic, unfeeling bitch. I'm like, deal with it. You came into this protocol knowing that there's pain. Why are you looking now for biohacks? Why are you looking for pain mitigation? That's the whole point of this protocol, is that you got to heal, feel, and deal with the stuff that you've ever put yourself in. You got to hold yourself accountable for all the wrong chemistry you've applied to your body. Now, on weak bodies out there that have not been introduced to J juice and they don't want to do J juice, well, they don't want to die right away. So yeah, the vaccine industry is there, but the viruses you're going to be exposed to anyways, the side effects or the inserts of those vaccines let you know that, yeah, if you have issues in your body already, you could be potentially triggering these things, but you're going to anyways. I mean, you don't get the vaccine, but you get exposed to the virus, and then you apply colloidal silver, you apply elderberry syrup, and you apply, whatever, some kind of concoction from some homeopathic, you're still going to be triggering a cancer or disease or a chronic illness in some way, because you now have a weak body. You're already exposed to viruses that are not really bad, but on a weak body, they will trigger the named diseases. So no matter what, you avoid a vaccine or you take a vaccine, if you have a weak body, you're already exposed to viruses, you're screwed no matter what, because you're already taking the wrong chemistry. You already have a weak body. But hey, when you have a weak body and you don't want to give it the right nutrition, you don't want to feel pain, that's when the vaccines are necessary. So you have to understand why things have a place in our society, why the therapies are there for those that don't want to really heal. They just want to drug themselves until they pass away, but they want to have a good time on their way out. And yeah, hey, 20 years of a good time, that's long. So people don't really think about what they're doing until the day comes where they have to pay the piper. The devil does take his due, and he's not very sympathetic. So you have to understand how all these different therapies that people do in the holistic and the allopathic market, the acupuncture, the chiropractors, the sports therapy, the physical therapy, any therapy on a weak body will do more damage, and then soft pedal and then hard pedal you into another disease. You have to understand that. If not, then hey, have fun on your way out. But I've dealt with a lot of the pain and the healing the last 3 years of all of the last 40 something years of my life. And so, I earn the right to have no pain when I drink J juice. Yesterday I did a J juice and I had a little bit of a headache because, I'm always it's always going to be, whenever you go from one environment to another or one climate to another, you're always going to be exposed to different adaptation things. Your body's always going to have, when I peed out the green pea and it was foamy yesterday, I actually posted the first pic, not in the actual post, but in the comments of my pee. It was green. I looked up, what is green foamy pee? Oh yeah, it's extra proteins, and the foam has to do with just how fast the waterfall came out. But it wasn't pee. Actually, it wasn't pee. It was, yeah. Oh my God, why did I say it was pee? Yeah, okay. Damn. But still, it's still, even if you don't pee it out, it's coming out of your butt, and it's green, and I didn't have anything that was green. So it's still extra proteins the body's taking out. So either way, you're excreting pee or excreting, waterfalls. And it was a purple cabbage, so it shouldn't have been green. But there's extra protein. Extra proteins, okay? So I've been, I eat protein, I eat meat, I eat whatever. But the body, you know, regulates. It self-regulates under the right conditions. And then people self-medicate when they can't, when their self-regulation is all messed up. Then they self-medicate and they cause more imbalances. Or they take prescription drugs that have side effects. And so, yeah, when you're taking a thyroid drug, okay, and it says that glaucoma or other types of things could trigger, and then you're seeing your vision go to shit, yeah. For you to take this thyroid drug to keep your thyroid hormones balanced, other parts of your body are going to be affected, and potentially glaucoma or the systematic degradation of your eyesight will start happening. And then you're wearing glasses. And then you got to get a stronger prescription. So the body's constantly trying to adjust and constantly trying to heal, but you're not giving it what it needs because you're malnourished, mineral depleted, and so you're seeing the systematic degradation based upon the therapies. Therapies. Yeah, I said, what did I say? Green foamy pea when I was doing the waterfalls, and it was green and foamy. Well, because maybe I automatically knew that whether it's pee or whether it's poo, the body's still releasing any excess acids, any excess prohormones, any excess minerals. So no matter what, whether it's coming out of your butt or out of your urethra, the body's releasing the excess. So that's why I didn't really make that distinction, that even though it was a waterfall, I said it was green foamy pea. Because actually now it all looks the same anyways. Okay? But anyways, just something to think about, you guys, especially those of you who are in the holistic world. You're not any better than the allopathic. And now I just substantiated it. Okay? Because it has to do with imbalances of your acids, your hormones, and your minerals. So when you're taking elderberry syrup, taking colloidal silver, you're taking all your vitamin supplements, you're causing more imbalances, and then you're no different than a chemotherapy patient going through chemotherapy, but maybe a little bit slower, but on a biochemistry that's weak, it will hard pedal its way to another disease and then potentially death. Okay? So this is why I am what I am about therapists in my group who are promoting themselves, as well as therapies in general. All right, bye.